Well, first of all, I want to thank Ben for starting the tradition of everyone bringing checks to the annual celebration every year. So remember that next year. I had really no idea what Ben and Dick would talk about. We traded some ideas by email, but I wanted to avoid becoming too prescriptive. But it turned out that what they said couldn't have been more perfect to lead into what I want to say. From Dick, the excellence and continuity of the board and the staff and the role that played. From Ben, some themes exhibited by key people that carry through to this day, values of ours that carry through. Mary Jane's diplomacy, Betsy's pragmatism, Phil's care and appreciation for the supporters and ability to mentor the staff, Diane's wit, Cecily's high standards. The one thing Ben said about himself that I think he said kind of in passing, but is really emblematic of our values, is when he was approaching some of the new towns on the western frontier, his approach first was to walk into those towns and say, how can we be helpful? It's just a few words, but it's so telling about the ethic of the Conservancy then, and it carries through to this day. Think about that. Well, you guys in speaking today, I think, had the easier job because I have to talk about the future, and it hasn't even happened yet. But I'm happy to do it. Today, 25 years is more than an incredible milestone. I mean, 25 years is a pretty arbitrary number, but it's important, but it's really more than a milestone. This is a pivotal time of transition for the Conservancy, for the land trust movement as a whole. So much is changing, and I myself find myself straddling the past and the future in sometimes exciting, sometimes actually fearful ways, observing what is changing, sometimes by necessity and obligation, sometimes by our own choice, but also observing what has remained the same. A case in point, we now own or have conservation easements on nearly 17,700 acres, which now is an area almost the size of the entire town of Dublin. 5 years ago, we were just a Marlborough. We're moving up. But here's a dirty secret. We peaked 7 years ago in the number of new acres we were adding on a year-to-year basis. 2007, that year, we acquired 37 new properties or conservation easements on more than 3,500 acres. We haven't come really close to that ever since. And a lot of those were my projects in 2007. And for years, it bugged me that in the years to come, we didn't come close to that number. But it doesn't bug me anymore, and I'll tell you why. For one, the projects that we're doing now, even if they're fewer, even if they don't add up to as much acreage, are arguably more visible, more tangible, more inclusive, and more relevant to the broad public than many that we've ever done before. They're also way more expensive and more technically challenging, but they're affecting and engaging more lives, and in positive ways. Tippin Rock Farm in Swansea, the place to bring your grandkids for their first hike up a hill. Cooper Hill in Marlborough, a view admired and treasured by thousands as they drive by every day on 101 and know that they are home. The Shattuck Farm in Swansea, an emblem of a family's and a town's proud heritage. Just to name a few, these projects did more than protect acres. They built community. The other reason I'm not bothered by the slowdown is that what we're doing in addition to those land transactions is addressing how people relate to land and to one another in entirely new and novel ways, and advancing our mission in doing so. So I think of two main buckets of how we as a society influence land use. There's obligation, which is law, which is who owns it and what their rights are and what they can say about what you do with the land. There's included with that is the acquisitions by land trusts of land and conservation easements. And the other is simply the choices people make by choice about how they treat land. And for much of history, the focus of land trusts has been on that first bucket: laws, rules, obligations. But wouldn't it be great if society stewarded land not just out of obligation, but simply or also by choice? I'm not naive enough to think that that's the only way we're going to get by in doing this. We're still going to need laws, and we're still going to need the kinds of projects and transactions we do. But cultural norms are a really powerful thing, too. And it's into this realm, connecting with the hearts and minds of people who may not own conservation land yet, may never, that we're beginning to venture. And I think it's a very good thing that we're doing so. So here's how. A couple of comparisons. Silver Lake, straddling the border of Harrisville and Nelson, one of the cleanest bodies of water in the region, and a community surrounding it so proud and fiercely defensive of that. Between 2003 and 2008, we acquired 12 conservation easements in the watershed of Silver Lake. But then a time came when the people around that lake realized that they had conserved probably all they were going to conserve. And they asked, what do we do next? This is the Silver Lake Land Trust, a little partner of ours. And we helped them answer that question through looking at what they had and what their objectives were. And they recognized that keeping the land that was undeveloped was great too, but there's a lot you can do to influence water quality in that community through how people treat what they already have, their driveways, their yards, how the water runs off the roof of their camps. And so now, the new wave of our partnership in Silver Lake is helping them acquire the funds and have the technical expertise to design new ways of managing stormwater runoff around the lake on people's driveways with new plantings, new ways of channeling water, us providing the technical assistance, and them getting the word out around their community to get people to sign up for this by choice and having a lot of fun in the process. Stonewall Farm, our first conservation easement, thanks to John and Betsy Harris in Dublin, now has new owners. They were here earlier today, Archie and Nina McIntyre. They needed to leave, but they're looking forward to welcoming people to the other hike that you really ought to go on afterward to see Stonewall Farm. With a new vision, not necessarily better, but different than what John and Betsy have, of finding a tenant farmer to come onto the property, not just to be a caretaker, but perhaps to be a co-equal business partner in trying new things on that property, getting livestock and animals back on the land, producing new crops, generating income. It's something so different yet representative of a new thing that we're trying to get into, which is looking at the lands that have been conserved and their agricultural potential and seeing if we can get that land more actively used by partnering with the landowners and farmers who are looking for land and secure long-term tenure so that they can make the investments in getting that land into production. We're working on a research project with a bunch of partners just to learn exactly about how that works. On that note of Stonewall Farm and that transition from the Harrises to the McIntyres, we're soon going to be putting up on our website a short film put together by today's videographer, Morgan Baker, that he and a colleague student at Franklin Pierce put together on that incredible story of that evolution. On our Maynard Forest in Gilsum, a property that we did a timber harvest on our first ever years ago, and now trying something entirely new, having cut down trees to see what we can get now to grow and learn about too. We planted over 100 blight-resistant chestnut trees in a research project to see how can we resurrect this once incredible species now lost from the landscape, and what can we learn about its effect on silviculture. At the Calhoun Forest, property given to us a few years ago by the Calhoun family, building trails to the incredible Porcupine Falls for recreation for the public, but also using those trail building projects to build skills and build community among volunteers who want to learn about how to build and manage trails and go out back to their own hometowns and do that there. Also in the Calhoun Forest, timber management. So we've gone from enforcement of how best to cut down trees and manage forests to actually practicing what we preach. And on the Calhoun Forest, we're doing that with an ongoing harvest happening right now. They may be working there today if the soil is firmed up enough from yesterday's rains. Not just doing it, though, but having demonstration tours so people can come out and learn how it's best done and how timber management for income can be really compatible with conservation, keep people working, give us a supply of materials that we need right here at home. So I don't want to suggest in saying all these new things that we're getting out of the business of land deals, far from it. West Hill, one of our two biggest signature projects right now, 700 acres in Keene, Chesterfield, and Swansea in the California Brook Natural Area, one of our biggest projects ever. Classic large block conservation motivated by many myriad ecological values of those parcels. But also a project that's so close to Keene and the population of Keene that it presents this incredible opportunity to be engaging people with this incredible truth of such a wild area, just steps from the density of downtown Keene. The simple message of how cool is that you have that right there? Wouldn't it be great to keep it that way? And we could raise the funds that we need to raise to do that quietly among a handful of major donors, but we decided to take the harder route to be building community and engaging people by trying to get a whole bunch of smaller level gifts by doing really broad-based fundraising across all those towns, not just doing it quietly and kind of sneaking it through and people learning about it after the fact another day. And then another signature project, very different and definitely not a classic conservation project. We're conserving a golf course in Walpole, the Hooper Golf Course. And so there are two questions asked on the IRS's formidable Form 990, our annual return to be stating our activities. Two questions asked to find out if a land conservation organization has truly lost its marbles. One is, how much income do you derive from indoor tanning activities? I'm not kidding. It's on there. And the second is, do you hold any conservation easements on golf courses? So one would think that we were out of our minds, but we're doing it for the simple reason that the town of Walpole said, this place matters to us, perhaps more than any place in town matters to us right now, and losing it would irrevocably alter the character of our community. We need your help to do it, and so we're stepping up. And as a result, months of our past newsletters over the past year have shown list after list of brand new members, most of them from Walpole, because they've gotten engaged with protecting this place they love in their backyard. So there's some of the things that have changed, but what has stayed the same? Well, Dick spoke about it, the incredible board. I can't say it any better than he did. The professional staff that we have, of which I am so proud, not just for today, but for everything you do. The Land Trust Alliance's national rally coming up, nearly the whole staff is going, and one of our staff members, Emily Haig, presenting on the faculty there of workshops, not one program, not two, but 3 times, because she's so good at what she does. Our ability to embrace new technology and stay ahead of that game. So back 25 years ago, our highest technology of mapping was the yellow highlighter to color in the parcel that was to be visited that day. And now our geographic information systems and our mapping technologies and our efficiencies of how we can create that mapping and get at the data we need are the envy of many of our colleagues. Our commitment to excellence and professionalism, Ben spoke about Cecily Bastido and getting us on board with the Land Trust Alliance, and I'm happy to share with you the news today in advance of everything else. This is actually supposed to be a secret, so you can't call up the Associated Press after this, at least until Monday. The news has been embargoed. That on Thursday, I received the phone call that on top of being the first accredited land trust in New Hampshire, we're now the first to receive renewal of our 5-year accreditation from the Land Trust Accreditation Commission. So don't tell, remember. And then finally, to talk about what stays the same, I want to read a quote that has stood out to me ever since it was discovered in our archives. If I can find it, here it is. I'll say who said this after I read it. It goes like this: conservation of resources, natural, cultural, and human, can, since space explorations have held a mirror to Earth, be seen as the greatest challenge humankind has ever faced. We need more than ever before to understand all facets of human history and to transcend allegiances to territory, home, country, ideology, religious sect, and even family, and to see all Earth as home, and each and every man and woman, no matter how different from us, as a fellow sharer of the human experience. Building bridges of mutual understanding becomes ever more important. That could have been said by some contemporary speaker talking about the new face of the land conservation movement right now, but it's actually a quote that is 34 years old. It was said by Abe Wolf, one of the founders of the Conservancy, in 1980. And you can see throughout how that spirit of conservation and humanity going hand in hand has woven through our history and continues to this day, and I think it's what's going to carry us forward. So, back to my original analogy of straddling the past and the future. I am today going to mark this 25th anniversary by taking a step across that line from the past into the future, but carrying with me Abe's quote and all those other timeless values that have made us what we are today and of which I'm so proud. So thank you.